I've taught at colleges for about 8 years, and I've done enough masterclasses all around the world to see, like, people have the same problems when they approach playing an instrument. There's only a certain number of fundamental things. With bass players, it's like alternate picking or hand position. With guitar players, it's trying to get their picking together or knowledge of the fingerboard, or these certain things. With rhythm, you tend to find a lot of people only associate, like, they look at the instrument like it's going to tell them the answer. And drummers feel like they have, you know, like a bass player, guitarist would say, well, you know, I kind of rely on him to tell me where it's at. And I'm like, don't ever rely on your drummer to tell you where the time is. That's really unfair on them. That means they have to spend their whole gig pulling you along because you're not quite sure. Whereas when you see three people that get up on stage, as hopefully we do, who all have a good command of time, you feel that we're all completely independent of each other if we want to be, and we're all completely locked in. The best description I got of this was actually from a drummer mate of mine called Dave King. He plays in a trio called the Bad Plus, and he says most bands think of revolving on a similar axis, so if you can imagine like a little moon orbiting a planet. And he says the way we like to think about it is that sometimes one of us can detach and take a different orbit from the rest. Now we're still relative to the same planet, if you like. We're still moving at the same kind of rate, or maybe we're moving at a slightly slow rate, but we have overlap points where, poof, after a certain amount of time, we're going to meet again. And you have to have a really strong, like, personal command of rhythm for that, and that doesn't come from your instrument. It doesn't come from the flute or the drums or the guitar. It comes from you. You know, take my bass off and I still get all this stuff. One of the best things you can do is get away from your instrument and don't think about notes and chords and all those things, and actually just, you know, if you have dead simple percussion, or if you can sit and clap your hands or stamp your feet or count, engage the voice, all these things, they're massive help.
You know, and I'm sure it's the same situation for us all, but I do a lot of professional gigs where I don't get to play the way like I've just played, where I'm really just another kind of member of the band, and I kind of play the guitar parts, and I really enjoy it. It's a different skill to just be a member of an ensemble that just plays the parts usually as written, but there's not much room for interpretation, there's not much room for self-expression and so on. Now, that's great, and you know, financially it's great, career-wise it's great, and lots of other reasons it's great. But there's something inside that says to me, I really want to play the way that I want to play with no kind of compromises in a way. I find like-minded musicians who've got that kind of same objective, I guess. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be something that, you know, I'd advise you do the same as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a massive career move. It could be something that you do just for the sheer kicks of playing, you know. We're not doing this for the money, you know. We do, as you guys know, we do a regular gig, sometimes here, you know, various places in the neighbourhood. And we do it really so we can go, you know, that stuff we've been practicing and all the things we've been trying and all the things we're doing to expand as musicians. Well, here's a kind of opportunity where we can get together, and it's fun, you know. It's meant to be fun. It's, you know, it's kind of called playing for a reason, I think.
I think as well it's quite important to try and, you know, play different styles of music and come out of your comfort zone. I've seen too many kind of good drummers that play in famous bands who I won't name, but they end up breaking up for whatever reason, and suddenly these guys can't physically do anything else. You know, maybe they're too old to join another band. They're not good enough to go get a working gig, and, you know, whether they need the money or not, they just there's no outlet. So I think, you know, some of you probably love the music we're playing tonight. Some of you probably think, you know, what's the point in playing all those notes? Both valid opinions, but I think for us it is nice to get out and work and do a regular gig where you're making money, and, you know, you have to keep it simple, but at the same time being able to try and do stuff that you can't do most places is just fun as a musician.
There are only so many guys around who want to play improvised music, who want to play kind of chopsy stuff, who want to play fusion, and then within that pool, there's a lot of them that are what John was talking about. They're cerebral players, very head heavy, not really instinctive or not really emotional. They're like, do you want to come around to my house and play 4 minutes of A minor while I burn all over the top of it? And I'm like, not really, because basically what you want is a fancy human backing track, and that's no fun for me. So you tend to get onto, there are different rings of the industry. There are people who play an instrument, and there are billions of them. Then there are ones who like focus and practice a little bit and sort of work on it, and there are millions of them. And then there are guys who are dedicated, maybe at college, and there are thousands of them. Then there are guys who really graduate and go out and play and get it. And as you go up each layer, the ring gets smaller and smaller to where you can probably name the 5 top guitarists in London, or the 5 top bassists or top drummers or whatever. And as you're traveling up that thing, you'll start to see it's impossible to avoid. I would have had to try very hard not to come across John at some point. And the key thing with it was that when we did cross each other's paths, they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So him and I meeting each other and me being crap is not good luck. That's me being unprepared, and it won't work out well. So this was at a time where I was practicing like crazy. We got together and played once, and I was like, straight home. I got to get myself together before I go and see him again. And it's that kind, being ready enough as a player that when you meet somebody awesome, you're going to be kind of awesome too.
We all want everyone to think we're amazing on our instruments, The kind of the ego takes over a little bit, and you sort of playing to impress people, And whether the gig's good or bad doesn't matter, so long as someone comes up to you at the end of the gig and goes, "That was incredible," or whatever, And it's really the wrong reasons, and I think that's the reason why sometimes musicians feel a lot of pressure when they play, because they're not playing because they love the music. They're playing because they want to be like the best, or whatever that means, Now, whilst I think it's good to try and be the best that you can be, kind of the best version of yourself, it doesn't really make any sense to me to sort of be in competition, or try and feel like did I win, at the end of a gig. And I've played with those guys, where at the end of the gig I know what's going through their head is, did I win? And I had to have a little kind of talk with myself at one point, saying, do you know what, this is wrong. Because what was happening with me is, I'd find if say a load of guitar players or a guitar player that I really respected turned up to the gig and walked in, I found myself changing the way that I played, They'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to play the whole gig at him, so that he thinks I'm great." And you think, that's just no good, You've got to have a bit more self-belief in the fact that you might be the best at being you, at playing the way that you want to play, and it's not about being like this super impressive guitar player, because the thing I've found is the less I've tried to do that, the more people who don't play the guitar seem to like it, and the more the phone rings,